Alright, so sorry about no official video yesterday. I did try to post something, but I had a super crazy day in the morning, so I just wasn't able to find the time. But looking at yesterday, started out great. Iowa State, Syracuse both won outright. Um, Pretty close games, pretty much neck and neck the entire way. Some runs by both teams, but both came onto our side of the ballot. Game number 3, Idaho, they just didn't look great. There was at one point, I think with like maybe 10 minutes left, where they actually ended up taking the lead, but then they just completely collapsed, giving up like a 19-2 run. And they ended up only losing by, I think, 10. Providence, probably the more frustrating game. They should have been dominating. Seton Hall just kept hitting like insane threes. I think Providence was up like 9 in like the final couple minutes, but Seton Hall just kept making baskets. Every time they would foul, they'd go in and make another basket. So Providence just couldn't pull ahead. So they ended up not covering. I think they ended up winning by 5 or 6. And the most frustrating game yesterday was CSN. So I actually went to bed early last night because I had such a busy day. But if you were following that game, I believe they were up pretty heavily. Yeah, they were up 15 at half, and that's when I went to bed. And then they gave up a 60 bomb in the second half. Gave up 60 points to their 41. Bakersfield just could not miss a shot, and they ended up losing by 4. So I was pretty confident going to bed up 15 that this was probably going to cover, and then they just ended up losing outright, which is kind of insane. But always a risk when you take a road dog. The home teams, if they're losing at half, they kind of just lock in. But they clearly could not miss a shot, even though CSN was probably my favorite play yesterday. I think I might start taking some first half lines a bit more often. Anyway, let's move on to today's best 5. All right, moving into game number 1 today. I actually like Nebraska to cover the 8.5 as a road dog. So Purdue's been surprisingly good this year. Obviously, without Edie, a lot of people kind of thought they would be a much worse team. And I think they are a worse team for sure. They're not getting as many open looks as Edie used to provide them, but they've been a really good team. They've beating a lot of good teams by double digits this year, which is why I'm a bit iffy on this pick. It's probably my least favorite, but I also think matchup-wise, Nebraska should be able to keep this game relatively close. So if you look at what Purdue likes to do, they really like to shoot threes and mid-range shots. They don't really take any shots in the paint. Their average proximity is 272nd in the nation, so they take almost all of their shots from either the 3 or just mid-range. So Nebraska doesn't guard the paint necessarily that well. It's probably the worst thing that they're, the worst defensive attribute. But if you look at their matchup, Purdue shoots the 49th best 3-point percentage in the nation. Nebraska defends it at the 39th best. Purdue shoots the 27th best mid-range shot in the nation. Nebraska defends it at the 30th best. And just in general, Purdue shoots at the 15th highest clip, but Nebraska defends it as the 7th best in limiting opponents' field goal percentage. So I think Nebraska will probably be able to stifle them and not allow them to get as many shots as they typically like to. And if you look at where Purdue also gets a lot of points, it's on second chance opportunities, 70th in the nation in second chance opportunity percentage. And they won't get very many here. Nebraska is really good on their own boards, 23rd best in the nation. So Purdue probably, if they do miss their shots, I think the odds are Nebraska will get more defensive boards than Purdue will get offensive boards. And on the other side, Nebraska really likes to shoot in the paint and threes. They don't really shoot mid-range, which is something I love about them. I hate the mid-range shot. But if you look at their matchups, in the paint, they are going to be 57th best in your paint percentage, and Purdue does not defend the paint well at all. They're 235th. It's the one thing that they can't seem to defend because they're a much smaller team this year. So I think Nebraska should be able to get a lot of free points here in the paint, and even at 3, Purdue defends it at the 58th best, but Nebraska shoots it at the 64th best. So similar to the Purdue-Nebraska side, I think both teams will find some limited success from 3, but they'll probably still find some. And again, Purdue plays at a really slow pace, so I think that naturally keeps the game much lower scoring. And I think Nebraska, with getting those free points, especially at the line where they are the 59th best in the nation, I think this has the potential to be a close game. Obviously, Purdue has the ability to run away with games, but I like the spot for Nebraska to cover the 8.5 on the road. All right, coming into the second game, we have Washington visiting Michigan at home as 14.5-point underdogs. Now, Washington's been a weird team this year. They're 10-6, but they played well and awful in some games. They seem to be very inconsistent. But if you look at their matchup here, Michigan is just the better team in almost every single situation. So Michigan is, I have them as the 8th best team in the nation in terms of how they've played at a competition level. They're probably more closer to a 20 top 30 team this year, but Washington, I have them as a borderline, almost outside of the top 100 this year, which is surprising considering they were supposed to be a pretty good team in the Big Ten. But if you look at the matchup, you got Michigan, who's the 9th best offensive team in the nation, to Washington's 85th in defensive efficiency. And on the other side, which is even more significant, is Washington is the 162nd best in offensive efficiency to Michigan's 17th in defensive efficiency. So immediately, there's a huge mismatch. Michigan has played the 9th hardest schedule. Washington's played the 41st hardest schedule. All the momentum, home court, everything honestly points towards Michigan for me. If you look at where Washington likes to shoot, they typically really like to shoot mid-range shots and near basket shots, and they get a decent amount of points off second chance opportunities. But on the mid-range, they're 215th in field goal percentage to 56th in Michigan's defense. Near basket, 154th to Michigan's 38th. They want to try to get threes off. Michigan's the 5th best team at defending the three. Really, the only thing they have an edge here over Michigan is second chance opportunities, where they probably will find some success, but I don't think it will be enough success. Because if you look at the other side of the floor, this Michigan team, they like to shoot threes and near basket. And if you look at the matchup, Michigan shoots the 5th best 3% to Washington's 8th in defense. So, you got to give Washington some credit. They're really good at defending the three. But if Michigan doesn't want to take threes, and they'll shoot mostly near basket shots and second chance opportunity shots, Michigan shoots the 13th best in mid-range shots to Washington's 177th and the 10th best to Washington's 191st. So I think they're just going to live in the paint. They got those two new 7-footers in their front court that are just going to completely eat everything in the paint. And Michigan is the 3rd best team in getting second chance opportunities to Washington's 233rd. So if Michigan can get the ball into one of those two big guys, I think this is going to be like a Zach Edey situation where they're just going to get free points, and if they miss their shots, they're going to get rebounds. I don't know. I don't see a way where Washington can keep this game close unless they just shoot lights out with bad quality shots, which can happen in college, but I don't know. I think Michigan they're ranked number 1 in field goal percentage. They're going to get easy looks, consistent looks, and Washington's going to have tough looks the entire game. And they're on the road. Obviously, they're coming off a nasty loss. Maybe this is a good bounce back spot for them. And Michigan's coming off a long road trip out west. But I just think Michigan is above and beyond a better team. I think they win this game by 20 points or more. All right, moving on to game number 3, we have Wright State visiting the Robert Morris as short 1-point road dogs. Now, Robert Morris, if I've picked them a few times this year early on, and they let me down big time by absolutely collapsing in the second half. But those were home games. I'm thinking maybe they play a bit better on the road, which they have been this year. But if I look at the matchup, and I hate betting Robert Morris, or I hate betting Wright State, but this is just a great matchup for them. So if you look at the schedule strength, Robert Morris has played basically nobody. They have had the 22nd in schedule strength to Wright State's 230th. I've had Robert Morris as a borderline 250th best in the nation team to Wright State, who's been a borderline 150th. And if you just look at the matchup, Wright State likes to take a lot of shots from everywhere. And where do they have an advantage? Everywhere. They're 41st in 3-point to Robert Morris's 212th in defense, 28th in mid-range percentage to Robert Morris's 214th. They are 144th in near basket to Robert Morris's 202nd. The only place where they have an edge is on the boards, but Wright State doesn't typically like to shoot a lot. They don't typically like to play aggressively on the boards. They like to look for high quality shots, and keep all of their players kind of on the perimeter. But obviously they're not going to get a lot of boards, but they shoot at the 46th highest field goal percentage. So I think they just make their shots and they don't really rely on rebounding too much. And on the other side of the floor, this Robert Morris team, they've been looking good from like a visual perspective, but statistically they don't look like a great team. They shoot most of their shots from mid-range near basket. They don't really shoot a ton of threes. And if you look at their matchup near basket, they're 302nd in near basket percentage to Wright State's 157th on defense. They may find some success in the mid-range where they're 186th to Wright State's 268th. But like still, if they're shooting, in my opinion, the least efficient shot at not even that great, I want them to take those shots. Robert Morris likes to take free throws that typically get a lot of them, 33rd most in the nation, and they shoot it decently well. But I don't think that's going to be enough here to end up winning them the game. If it would, I think there's a situation where Wright State is going to be the team that is winning down the stretch, and Robert Morris is the one that's going to have to be making shots. But I don't think it's going to come down to a situation where Robert Morris is taking a lot of free throws. Again, we'll see. It could happen. But yeah, I like the spot for Wright State. Every stat points to Wright State being a better team on both sides of the ball. In a conference game here, I don't think Robert Morris is a very good team. But Wright State has burnt me twice. I'm hoping this is the time they don't burn me. So give me Wright State to win this game outright, but I'm going to take the 1 point in the event that it's a close game down the stretch. All right, moving on to the fourth game. I really like this spot for Marist here as a home favorite of 6.5. If you just really look at their matchups, I think Marist just matches up really well against Fairfield. So if you look at where Marist likes to make their shots, they like to shoot a lot of mid-range shots, 3-point shots. That's pretty much it. And mid-range, they're going to have a slight advantage, 274th to 303rd in Fairfield. But the big edge to me is the near basket, where Marist shoots it at 72nd best in the nation to Fairfield's 276th in defense. Fairfield's a really good team at controlling the ball. They don't give up a lot of free points, but I just think that Marist is going to figure it out, and they're going to live in the paint, and they're just going to run away with this game. Obviously, they don't really take that many near basket shots, but I think this is a situation where they're going to realize they have a mismatch, and they're going to play in the paint a lot more. Fairfield on the other side, Marist is more, I would say, more of a defensive team than an offensive team. If you look at what Fairfield likes to do, like to shoot a lot of mid-range shots and near basket shots and get points off steals. At the mid-range, they shoot 235th in the nation to Marist 75th in mid-range defense, and they shoot the near basket 338th best in the nation to 135th for Marist. So I think Marist, I have them as they've been good this year. They haven't played necessarily very hard teams, but the teams that they should be beating, they are beating by a significant margin. And this being a home team in the MAC, I think they're 11-2, and I think they're 11-2 for a reason. They're just a more well-rounded team here. I think they match up well against Fairfield, so I think they're going to win this game by probably 8 or 9. Also, not my favorite play of the game, but I just don't like this Fairfield team, especially on the road. I think the Foxes are just a much better team. So Marist is my fourth favorite game on the slate. All right, and lastly we have UAB at FAU, and this is one of those games where it's more of a system play than it is anything else. I only have FAU winning this game by 1, model-wise, but this UAB team has played basically nobody, and I don't think they're actually that good of a team, because every time they have to make a step up in competition, they just lose. If you look at UAB's matches so far this year, they have played only 4 teams that are borderline top 100 teams. They played North Texas, they lost that game by 3. They played Arkansas State, they lost that game by 9. They played Middle Tennessee, they lost that game by 7. And they played High Point, and they lost that game by 3. Every other team they played this year are 200 ranked, 300 ranked teams. And even some of those games they've lost. I think this UAB team is super overrated. They are due for some regression. They've been playing a bit better as of late. But this Florida Atlantic team is starting to pick up a bit. They had some 2 decent wins in the last couple games on the road. But at home, they've been playing tough teams. They played Memphis, they played Michigan State, they played Drake, they played Liberty, they played UCF. And they haven't, fared well against those teams. But I think they are a team that plays better at home. And this is a great spot for them to bounce back after losing, not bounce back, but keep up their momentum after winning the last 2 games on the road. And then we have the opposite side, UAB is coming off 2 big wins at home. Now they're going back on the road. I just think this is a great spot for FAU to cover the short spread. If you look at their matchups, obviously UAB has been a pretty good team. They shoot a lot of shots, third most in the nation. They play at a really, really fast pace. But so does FAU. They play at the only 6th ranked slower than UAB does. UAB really likes to take mid-range shots, near basket shots, and they get a lot of points off second chances and steals. And when you look at those matchups, in terms of points off steals and second chance, you would think, oh wow, UAB is just going to completely dominate this game. But again, they've been playing such dog shit teams. Like, you're going to get a lot of chances to steal the ball from them and get second chance boards, because half these, middle major teams, they don't have very strong, tall players. Although those kind of get sucked in through the transfer portal if they're good big men. But if you look at where they like to shoot, again, it was mostly mid-range shots near basket, and FAU defends that well. They're 84th in defending the mid-range and 63rd in defending the near basket. So, UAB, they can take all the threes they want, but they barely shoot the 3. They're 344th in the nation at 3-point attempts. So I think this is a spot where there will be a lot of opportunities for second chance opportunities, but only because they are so bad at shooting their mid-range shot that they just get so many second chance opportunities. On the other side of the floor, FAU shoots basically near basket and 3-point shots, and they'll get some points off of steals. For 3-point, they're 158th to UAB's 207th on defense, and near basket, they're 116th to UAB's 274th. So when I just look at this game, obviously, when I look at stats, UAB is a better team, but I just can't take any team seriously when they played the 305th easiest schedule, and UAB's played the 34th hardest schedule. I just think FAU's stats speak much more volume than UAB's. I think they're getting all of these good looks and second chance opportunities because they played such awful teams. But yeah, I like FAU to keep rolling. They're on a nice 2-win streak going back home, where they typically haven't been playing too well. So I think they're excited to get a win for the home crowd. And they're going to, I think they're going to play pretty solid. They're not going to give up the ball too much. They're going to play a bit harder on the boards. Yeah, again, not my favorite slate in general. It's a small slate, but I think I don't hate the slate. I think it's giving me 3-2 vibes a bit. But I would say my favorite game is definitely the Michigan game. This is probably my least favorite game on the slate. All right, and those are the 5 games that I'm personally going to be playing today. I might end up looking at some live bets. I think there's some really, really fun matchups today. We have Michigan State at Northwestern. We have Penn State at Oregon, or Oregon at Penn State. We have West Virginia at Colorado. I think these are games that end up being really close down the stretch. So if either team pulls out ahead early, I'm probably going to look to live bet the dog, try to get like a nice +10 dog, especially if it's a team like a home team that we're getting the points with. So that will be it. I am, in order of confidence, I say Michigan is my favorite game today, and then Marist, and then Wright State, and then FAU, and then Nebraska. I'm just a little bit scared of this Purdue team running away with it a bit, but it is a 12 p.m. game, and I don't know. Typically, those are a bit lower scoring. The teams are sometimes a little bit tired, a bit sluggish, give up a lot more on defense. So I will see you guys tomorrow. Hopefully, we have a solid day today, and thank you so much for watching.